Um, yeah, so unfortunately, we do have three guys this week getting surgery, so our thoughts are with them. Jordan Anderson, he was actually scheduled a couple weeks ago, but had an illness delayed that, so he'll have surgery. And then also Demetrius Hill tore his ACL last week, so he'll have surgery this week. And unfortunately, after test on Sunday morning, Matt Bailey dislocated his shoulder, but also had some structural damage in there as well. So he'll have surgery this week and be out for the season. So unfortunate for those guys, but I did think that, on Saturday, several different occasions, there was Isaiah Adams got knocked out of the game for a minute. Hunter Whiteneck went in there and did a nice job, did some things. And then a couple of the guys at other positions. We got a lot of wide receivers in the game that we hadn't been able to get in at that point. Our two young running backs, a couple defensive players. You saw Ashton Hollins make a big play, obviously Malik Elzy. So some positives that came out of a negative situation was some guys got some reps and continue to be pretty impressive what we saw during practice. So excited for that. I think offensively, obviously the big question will be at quarterback, how Luke responds and comes back is going to be awesome. I think the part that I called him on Saturday night, let him know where I was at and how he was feeling. I think Sunday was a tough day for everybody, right? But to get a chance to turn our preparation into another quality non-conference opponent, I think is going to get everybody's attention and focus on that. So I like the demeanor we were in Sunday. Obviously, today's a day off. We'll know a lot about tomorrow on Tuesday's practice. FAU, obviously, the situation that happened at Clemson, the game got away, got an early pick. Obviously, their quarterback got injured. That got confirmed today, right? So now they're playing with their starting quarterback, which we assume will be for us this week. But just the week before, right, they lost a tough game to Ohio. And Ohio, you saw what they did this week against Iowa State. So this is a very good football team, one that's got a lot of speed on the field, very well coached. Obviously, the coaches are in the beginning phase of their career there, so those guys are getting their feet wet. But they obviously were at Clemson last week, so they're not going to be intimidated or anything along the lines of walking into our stadium. So excited for the work week in front of us and see where we can go. With that, open up for questions.
Brett, the same thing I asked Aaron. You know how hard Matt Bailey worked this winter and summer to get on the field, and in the first play of the game, he just laying on the ground. As a human being, you just had to go.
Well, yeah, twofold. That one play he had was really good. They ran a quick toss in the boundary, and he came up and supported, and I brought him in yesterday after it was confirmed. He and I had a moment. He'd been through a lot just to get to that point, right? Just the setbacks he had. And over there near the boundary, he kind of just put his left hand out, and then everything kind of piled on top of him. And he did get enough strength to go back in, but what the x-rays found out and some things, there was some things that he could. Sometimes guys will have these type of moments and can play with it, but his injury was one that he won't be able to do that. So that's why we obviously waste no time, no decision to get the surgery done as fast as he can. He'll look at probably about a 6-month rehab for that. But yeah, literally he's in my meeting. We're talking about the injury and the rehab and had a lot of guys have this surgery that it's an invasive surgery, so it's going to be painful. And I literally get done talking about that, and he's like, okay, when I come out to practice, where should I stand to get the maximum amount of learning? He literally flipped a switch like that about what he could do to become better over the next 6 months while he isn't able to play the game. So I'll give him some NFL projects, obviously watch some safeties that play similar schemes in our system and give him some things because he does have a little, I'm not a doctor, but he does have a little OCD. He's going to be driving himself nuts with not enough things to do. Classic example, right? So Saturday, I get done with the media, come up to my office. We have some recruits, and then I'm coming back down the stairs to get to our car with my wife and my daughter. And I see Matt Bailey walk out, and he's got like a group of 15 people. I didn't know if they're all with him or who it was, but it was an entire church group from Moline that come to watch him. It's good stuff, but tough.
Coach, I know all games count the same, but is this one of those ones that is a must-win game for you to get where you want to go this season?
I get the question, but I think from the outside world, that's probably one that you probably figured out from our room that would this is the fourth game on our schedule. We talked about how the season lays out, right? We knew that we had obviously the opener, and then to go on the road to Kansas, come back and play a Penn State Big Ten game in Game 3 is unique, and then they have a non-conference opponent right behind it. But this is week 4 of 12. it's the last game that we have before we enter into 8 games straight of Big Ten play. So I think that's the only thing our guys will see it as. But they'll respect all, fear none, and get excited to play them in the scheme. And again, I don't have to go any further back than to see the way they played, especially in the second half against Clemson, and then also the Ohio U game in particular.
You guys as coaches to help Luke quickly rebound, turn the page.
Yes, but I think Luke has to process it, right? Like one of the things that we say all the time in our building, right? Adversity is going to strike, and you learn more from yourself during moments of adversity than you do in moments of success. And I think after that first game, everybody's like, whoa, right? And then even though we didn't do the things that we want to do at Kansas, he had that long run, so everybody's thinking all this, right? So for a starting quarterback, I literally Googled on my own Saturday night college and NFL quarterbacks that have thrown 4-game interceptions and 4-in-a-game interceptions, and the list is incredibly long, right? So, it happens. It's happened in the past, and my guess it's probably going to happen in the future. I just hope it doesn't happen to him again. And I think the parts that you have to take into account, like there were definitely reasons to those throws, right, and what they had and what occurred. I was obviously vented a little bit after the game. There was a number of plays I've turned in, very frustrating. Literally the first play on defense had a little bit of a situation 50 yards away from the ball. On that touchdown drive when we got going, they had a player to literally dive and hit him right at the kneecaps, which from where I sit, I wanted to have that called, and that kind of gets in your mind a little bit, right? And we were obviously having some pressure in his face. I think we got to clean that up. So I think not everybody was just saying it's Luke. I think a lot of guys were doing, what can I do to help Luke?
We've heard you talk a lot about complementary football.
Yeah.
Haven't seen that as much this year. What's important? How important is that to get back to?
Yeah, we need to see more of it, but there is a segment that I specifically showed to the guys. Last thing we showed. So when I get them at first on Sundays, it's usually pretty good corrective. Have big ears, big eyes, and learn. And then on the back end of it, before we jump into FAU, I showed them at the 6-minute mark, roughly the 6-minute mark. Our defense had a drive that had gotten in the red area. We made a stand and we blocked a field goal, right? The next series, our offense took the field and scored a touchdown, and made it obviously at that time was a 13-7 game. Our defense took the field and shut them out on a 3-and-out, and then they punted the ball to us, and we had a 2-minute end-of-half situation that we didn't capitalize on. And obviously, they had their longest play from scrimmage was the 133-yard pass, right? And that gave them 3 points right at half. But I did show them that's complementary football. Defense blocks a kick, right? Stops a field goal. We score a touchdown. We kick off. We stop 3-and-out, and that's what we can do, right? So we just got to do it for more consistency and in more areas than just one segment of a quarter, right? So that's very important. And then I think it's also important for us to realize, right? Like, I was furious on the 2-point play to Malik, because if we score that, it's a 15-point game with late in the fourth quarter. But we have, I believe, 2 of our timeouts, if not 3. And I know our guys felt that. I don't know if everybody felt that, but I know our team on our sideline felt that. So that was a very frustrating moment, because, again, that was one that I think we should have had another play. And then when it didn't, that kind of just was a microcosm of the whole day.
I know those 2 injuries at safety, what's that mean for your depth at the position?
Yeah, so Demetrius had actually kind of been splitting time between Free and Strong. But when we knew we weren't going to have Matt in the game for the first 2 games, we really had repped Clayton, Demetrius, and a couple other guys, Nicario, at that boundary. And then obviously Demetrius goes down on Thursday and Matt goes down on Saturday. But we have had a lot of guys get reps there. I think Nicario, obviously Clayton's got a lot of reps there. You could also have Miles. You have Clayton, Resetic. There's some guys that have gotten some valuable reps there. It's good we have that many people now.
A lot of other people have talked about Luke Altmaier for his toughness. Talked about, you've said that kind of all year since you got to drum. Is that recovering from this, back from this? Is that part of that? Part of toughness.
Yeah, I think probably anything I had said at this point was the physicality, right? Like, he's a pretty tough kid, but I think he's a mentally tough kid. I don't think it's any secret to you guys have been around. Luke is a tremendous man of faith, right? And I think he knows the power and strength in him comes from outside of him, right? Like, and I think he'll lean on that right now more than anything. I think as coaches, as players, all we can do is support and improve them. I think Barry, if he didn't say it in here, I think he'll be the first to tell you that he's going to do everything he can to make it better for him, right? And take a self-inventory as coaches of what we asked him to do or not to do and how we can make that cleaner. And then it's all going to kind of collectively come together to hopefully have him have a chance to play better football on Saturday.
That room is pretty supportive too, that quarterback room seems to be, with all those.
Yeah, I don't think they. I actually had Tank in this morning. Tank and I talk every day after lift, so we have a lift group yesterday, and then they lift. They can have a voluntary lift on Monday, and he said literally in this morning's group, Luke Altmaier was lifting with John Paddock, right? And it's just now sometimes adults can't handle it that well, right? But usually the players can handle it very well.
The pass pro and maybe cleaning some of that up a little bit. Do you feel like the moves you guys made going into that?
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, I again, Isaiah Adams, I made reference to it. You're right. He literally started at every position now, I think, except for center, and he does play center. But he had never really played on the right side in active games all that much. He'd always been on the left side, left guard and left tackle, and a little bit of right guard. But to pop out at right tackle and play the way he did against that was by far, the most athletic front that we had played to this point. And for him to play that way, I think it's just a microcosm of why those NFL scouts are saying what they are about him. I thought for him, and then Julian, obviously you probably saw that he had a little bit of a cast on, right? Like for Julian, I thought he did some really good things for being in that situation as well. Zai really had only played guard because he'd been repping a tackle, so I think that Geske has continued to get better. I think Josh, this was his real first fire test with a team that was multiple and brought a lot of pressures and brought a lot of different things. So hopefully that the results of Saturday, success or failure, that galvanizes that group together a little bit better. And then I think Jordan Slaughter is another guy that continues to be impressive. And I tell you, Hunter Whitenick did a good job when he was in there.
Offense, Barry said, is still look for its identity 4 weeks in the season. Is that more just the way the games have happened, or what do you think needs to happen for that identity?
Yeah, well, for sure. I think when I always think of it this way, when I hear an opposing team talk about us, right? Like usually there's some commonalities that come out, and I just haven't heard that so far, right? So if our opponents aren't seeing it, then it tells me that nobody's seeing it. And there's things that always fluctuate year to year, but I constantly harp on our building, right? Good teams do 3 things: they run the ball, defend the run, and cover kicks, right? And right now we really haven't done those 3 things. Obviously the kicks have been limited, but we haven't effectively run the ball consistently for 4 quarters, and we haven't defended the run for 4 quarters effectively, in my opinion. But there were some really good things, some good positive things. In the first 2 ball games, we had given up, I consider a big play, 20 yards or more, and we had 11 of those plays, and then several 19 and 18s on our defense. Through the first 2 games, and on Saturday we gave up 2 plays over 20 yards. We gave up a 33-yarder and I believe a low 20s. And that, for me, in football has generally been a good indication of you can have success. And no penalty fouls or no personal fouls on our defense. Yep.
What strides do you feel like you need to make running the football?
What strides?
Yeah, just
I think the biggest thing obviously is just the production on early downs, right? Like everybody understands, early downs to play ahead of the chains to allow us to be in convertible 3rd down situations. I know we've been really close to making one break, and we just haven't been able to pull that through, like just literally an arm, one guy here, one guy there. Reggie, I thought, has been outstanding. I thought when I turned on the film on Saturday and then on Sunday, that touchdown run being one case in point, like he literally was contacted 3-yard line, and he drugged 2 guys in the end zone, and 2 guys are dropping on him. There's a couple plays that he read out and bounced around the edge and made enough, early on in that first drive. He had a dead play where a linebacker shot through. He bounced around the edge and got a first down. I think, and, Bret brought this up to me, after the game, we select guys to come to the media, and Reg got out of there quick, probably had had people in town, and Bret reached out to him, and he said, literally, I just left. I'm already, halfway home, and he turned around and came back to do an interview with you guys. Reggie has just been so impressive to me since I've been here, and I just think people like that usually get rewarded in big ways eventually, and hopefully his day's coming.
Get a bigger responsibility in the run game, or do you still want?
Well, I think it's still a work in progress, but yeah, absolutely. I mean, anytime you show, not just your teammates, but your coaches, your abilities, right? I think that should increase, and we definitely. He started every game for a reason, right? Like he definitely has done that. He's probably played the most. Not probably. He has had the most snaps. Right. The first 2 games, kind of how it played out, skewed that ball in the third and fourth quarter, and then obviously this past weekend, once the 2-point failed against Malik, now we're in strictly 2-point mode or 2-minute offense the whole way.
How was Caden Fagan just handled just the volume of more reps, and what could that mean for him?
Yeah, I think he was excited last week. One of the things we talk about with players, right? When we had a couple things designed to get him in the game, and I just said to him, I don't need half of Arthur knowing that we're gonna play. So he goes, no, coach, I haven't told anybody, even my mom, right? So I think he gets it, he understands it, and I think the part that's really fun for us with him and Aiden and Caden are both kind of uniquely different, but both of them have a really good skill set that I think. Aiden now is 2 games in a row now has kind of made a guy miss in space, and you're excited about what he does because you can see the confidence grow in both those guys, and they're always together.
It seems like and special teams, especially on kick return, been a little more aggressive in running the ball out. What do you like about the?
Yeah, well, again, Pat started off back there for us, and then Aiden had a nice, so we were kind of giving him some things. We really wanted to. We were trying to hit a counter return to the wide side of the field, and unfortunately, one of probably the hardest plays to simulate in football really is kickoff return, right? Just having the athletes that come down the speed and intensity they have, and obviously Penn State has a lot of depth, so it was blocked up nicely, except for one guy knifed through the middle of the formation. We got to have some ways to either clean that up or give that guy assistance. But Dish has been very impressive to me. We got the return game finally going in the punt game as well, and I think that brings a dynamic aspect to not just your team, but also just from an energy standpoint, if it makes a good play.
What's it like for you to watch Johnny Newby? Like when you watch his film,
Yeah.
The other day, like what?
I think that first play is kind of a microcosm of our entire season at this point on defense. They get a little bunch set on the boundary. They run a crack. They come down on Gabe, and Johnny probably recognizes that it's a pull by his guard, and the tackle's got him blocking down him. He's literally across his face before the ball carrier's got the ball in his hands. And what I've learned in defensive football, coaching the defensive line, those instinctive players see things before the snap, and he was onto something there, right? It's the first snap of the game. It's not like he heard a call or like he just recognized back was to my side, condensed split, and I think that's what popped it out. And he's really the one that he came over top, and then destroyed the play, right? There's some early down pass rushes that he just gets vertical in a hurry. Keith, I give a lot of attention to Keith too. Keith had a pretty significant bruise, and he struggled during the week and stayed with it, and he's been a very productive player through those 3 games. And I think that's what we got to have is our best players got to play well in every game, and those guys have been a good example of that through the last 2 games for sure.
Caleb able to get some touchbacks. Was it more schematic that you saw something, or was he dealing with something that would have?
No, I think the first one, the first half, just wasn't a well hit. I think he'd be the first to tell you. And then coming out of the halftime, the wind had switched and was going that way. So we kicked with the wind. I wanted to be aggressive out of the start of the second half, and obviously that one was a mishit to our right. So. Yeah, but also we have David. Literally, if there was another one, I was going to put David in on the kickoff. So I think competition brings the best out of people. And then the one thing I'd known about Caleb, there's a game last year where I was a little shaky, and he came back stronger than ever after. So I would expect Caleb to be at his best this point forward. Thank you.